my parents had a development and management company. And they found a piece of property that they, I think it was like 40 or acres, then grew into 120 acres for a sports complex that they were going to develop. And they did all the legwork, right? They found the property, negotiated the deal with the landowners. They did all the work, and then they brought in a realtor to bring in the paperwork, make everything legit. And they saw the size of that commission check, and they went, "Michael, we just wrote a check for 6 figures. We think next time that should stay in the family. So would you go get your real estate license so the next time that this happens, we can do that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." Side note, that project never came to realization. Like, that opportunity never came up again. But I said, "Great, I've got my real estate license. I have to be with a broker." So I went to a brokerage, and they started teaching me the ropes about buyer's agency and helping people on the residential side. And I quickly realized that I did not enjoy residential because it was not a scalable business. Like, I could not consistently get the same people to refer me business and to do the things I wanted. So that led me to real estate investment. And I just mainlined Bigger Pockets for about a couple weeks while I was trying to figure out what to do. And that led me to building a buyer's list. That led to me learning how to do underwriting for them on what was working for their projects. And that finally led me to going and working with a real investor who was also a broker, and then learning from him about creative finance and deals. And then I went and built my own RIA and got people attending, and just cut my teeth on everything else I needed to know in order to be able to make money in this business.
Welcome to the Moonlight Real Estate Side Hustle and Syndication Show. I am your host, Eric Lindsay. Here at Moonlight, we choose to focus on achieving financial security through real estate. And today we are here with Michael Liddicoat. Michael is an investor specializing in building scalable business systems. In his first year as a part-time realtor, Michael created a system to turn 80% of leads into clients, even when they were initially working with another agent. In addition to investing, Michael also scales businesses through operations improvement. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, hey, Michael, I'm super excited to have you here. I'm looking forward to the show and introducing you to my my audience. And so with that being said, if you could share just a little bit more about yourself and also how you got started in real estate, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So 16-year-old Michael loved Mr. Holland's Opus. Like, I really thought that was the career path I was headed down. I was going to be an elementary school teacher, and I was going to be pulling that retirement check and working with kids my whole life. And that's what I thought I was headed for. 3 years into my career, the state of Washington said, "Hey, we had all this money designated for teachers so that you guys could, have smaller classroom sizes. We've decided not to do that anymore. Oh, and by the way, all of the last 3 years of teachers we've hired, you need to go find different jobs because we can't afford to pay all of you as substitutes." So I tell people that I had entrepreneurism thrust on me. I didn't go looking for it. So after that, I went through a bunch of different things where people would come to me with opportunities. The first one after that was my mom actually owned a coaching business and consulting business, working specifically with people on life skills and job skills for the state of Washington. And she said, "Hey, would you come, build this business with me?" And I said, "No, I've known too many people that have done family businesses. They're not good ideas. I don't think we should do it." She said, "Well, come see one of the classes that I run." And I gave her the feedback. I was like, "Mom, these videos are from, the 90s. Your paperwork is from the 80s. Nobody's engaged. It's not good. Like, this is not a great thing." So I grew that from a part-time job with her into a full-time role where I was managing 7 employees across the state of Washington. And then the financial collapse happened. We were literally leaving from one DSHS office, and they said, "Yep, we're ready to hire you guys. Looks great." And on our drive back, they said, "Hey, we just got the word we can't expand our contracts anymore. We've got to shut the offer down." That led to economic development, which weirdly led to nonprofit management, where I was an executive director for a nonprofit agency. One of my board members there recruited me to come do IT sales. And I thought, that makes no sense, man. Like, those job skills are not transferable. And he said, "Let me get this straight. You're comfortable asking people to donate tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe you could change the world with it. I want you to go ask a business owner to give you a couple $1,000s that will make a difference in the job tomorrow." I was like, "Wow, you're really good at the sales thing." He's like, "Yeah, and I can make you good at it too." And so that led into project management. That project management led into product development and operations. And while I was doing that, my parents had a development and management company. And they found a piece of property that they, I think it was like 40 or acres, then grew into 120 acres for a sports complex that they were going to develop. And they did all the legwork, right? They found the property, negotiated the deal with the landowners. They did all the work, and then they brought in a realtor to bring in the paperwork, make everything legit. And they saw the size of that commission check, and they went, "Michael, we just wrote a check for 6 figures. We think next time that should stay in the family. So would you go get your real estate license so the next time that this happens, we can do that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." Side note, that project never came to realization. Like, that opportunity never came up again. But I said, "Great, I've got my real estate license. I have to be with a broker." So I went to a brokerage, and they started teaching me the ropes about buyer's agency and helping people on the residential side. And I quickly realized that I did not enjoy residential because it was not a scalable business. Like, I could not consistently get the same people to refer me business and to do the things I wanted. So that led me to real estate investment. And I just mainlined Bigger Pockets for about a couple weeks while I was trying to figure out what to do. And that led me to building a buyer's list. That led to me learning how to do underwriting for them on what was working for their projects. And that finally led me to going and working with a real investor who was also a broker, and then learning from him about creative finance and deals. And then I went and built my own RIA and got people attending, and just cut my teeth on everything else I needed to know in order to be able to make money in this business.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've traveled pretty well there.
Yeah. Not where 16-year-old Michael thought I was going to head on a career path or a trajectory at all.
Yeah, so it sounds like you wanted to go the school teacher route, but that kind of got derailed, and then hopped into a few other businesses, and you picked up a lot of skills along the way. So that's it's always good to be able to have a well-rounded skill set, because I mean, a lot of those skills, they're transferable. And so I still use a ton of things that I've done when I was a younger person as of today. So there's no wasted skills that we learn as we go throughout our journey there. So you mentioned that you became a realtor, and you learned that you really didn't want to be on the residential side. You wanted to get on the commercial side. So what was the jump? What was the leap in order to achieve that? Because being a residential realtor, I had my license in Kansas and Missouri at one point, and I worked strictly with residential. What does it take to become a commercial realtor, or do you have to be a broker in order to list commercial properties?
So in Washington State, I was pretty lucky that the license there is really broad on what you can do. In fact, I even got to dabble a little bit in business purchase and sales, because that was the license that you needed in order to be able to do that up in Washington State. And so really what it came down to for me was that once I had mainlined Bigger Pockets, I started having conversations with people that I knew through my parents and through other people, and just started asking questions on, hey, do you know anybody that owns investment property, or that has a rental, or that has this? And I would offer to go meet with those people, have coffee with them, take them to lunch, whatever, and just say, hey, I have my license. I'm doing this thing, but I don't know anything about anything when it comes to investment real estate or commercial real estate. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience and what you do? And these guys would just drop knowledge bombs on me. They would happily talk about their experiences and what they're doing. And for anybody that's worried about like doing that, I've always found that the investor community for real estate is one of the most welcoming and like knowledge giving and paying it forward communities I've ever walked into. I mean, these guys will just tell you all of the cuts and bruises and scrapes you're going to get into the business, because they went through it, they had it, and they know you're going to go through it, but they want the best for you to be able to do it, because most of them I've found also have that abundance mindset. Like, they're not worried about you're poaching a deal from them. In fact, most of them, the good ones, want to level you up because they want you to start bringing them deals so that they can, expand what it is that they are doing. And so after I had those conversations, my next step was I asked all of those guys, hey, could I send you an email with the properties I look at? Like, I'll go underwrite them and figure out if they make sense, but could I send that to you as like a weekly email just so that you could give me feedback or let me know if there's anything of interest. That's how I built my first buyers list. And I got it up to 35 or 40, like verified, like, yep, these are guys that have bought within the last year. They're giving me information. And that's what I did to cut my teeth. Was I was looking at every new property that came on MLS. I went through my spreadsheet that I'd created and did the underwriting on it. And then I also would call around for agents for pocket listings, off market, anything else that I could find, and do that as well. And then I'd send that out every week to people. I would hide the address, because at that point I didn't have anything under contract. So I would hide the address and say, hey, here's this number of this property, but here's what looks good. And the guys that were really into that would give me feedback, say, hey, you used 5% as your maintenance, your annual maintenance on this. I would be more comfortable with a 10% on it. And that's where I started to also learn that every investor has different numbers of what makes sense to them, and there's no universal. And so that then taught me how to go like, oh, okay, if I'm going to send this over to Eric, I got to make sure that I run my numbers this way on it, so that he doesn't have to go and rerun the numbers himself. He's going to see that I already am thinking of him and that these numbers make sense.
So as far as the properties that you were sending over to these investors, were those multifamily? Was it industrial properties? Was it retail properties? Or was it single family houses and you were just dealing with real estate investors?
Well, at the first layer, I was pulling everything off of our MLS. So if it was single family, multifamily, commercial, it didn't matter. Like, I was just underwriting anything that I could get that I was just going, hey, I want to learn this skill of how to do the underwriting on it, and then sending that to that list. And then when people would see something, they would call me out and say, hey, I like this property, but I don't like this number. If you can find more that are closer to this, do this. And then I would engage them in that conversation to go, great, tell me more, because you own these, I don't. So what do I need to look for? What does that look like? The other thing that I really did, though, while I was doing that, was I was doing residential real estate to bring in some income at the time. And I am so fortunate that every home inspector I worked with appreciated this, but I was glued to their hip for the home inspections. And I would walk through with them and ask them, well, why are you doing that? What's going on here? Because most of the other agents I saw that were or that I was learning with, they would, pull up a chair and sit down and they'd scroll through their email and they'd, talk and do other sorts of stuff. But I really spent that time working with the home inspector to figure out what were the things lying under the surface that were going to cause hiccups and cause problems later down the road. That really helped me when I started working with investors, because I would walk through a property with them and I'd go, hey, they'd say, well, what do you think? And most realtors out there would go, well, gosh, Eric, it's $400,000 and it makes $2,000 a month. That seems like a really good deal. And I would say, I don't know, man. I mean, you could see where there was a hole in the wall. They've still got galvanized pipe in there. That's going to be a problem for you. You're going to have to figure out if that's an issue or what's going on there. There was water damage over in this area of the kitchen. And so it hasn't been addressed. It makes me worried that there might be subfloor issues that you're going to run into. And then as we walk outside, I can see that they've got this type of panel that is in the mud room, and I know that panel is going to be a health and life safety issue for you. And most investors that I walked a property with would just, their jaws drop. They're like, 90% of the realtors I go and walk a property with wouldn't catch any of that stuff. And I was like, well, if you and I are going to do business long term, I better have your best intentions out there. So I should be looking out for the things that are going to cost you money, right? They'd go, yep, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah, that's great. Having a realtor that is very knowledgeable of repairs and how real estate investors will view things is absolutely amazing, because it saves us as investors a ton of time, because first off, we're already super busy. And especially if we have day jobs like I do, I need to really save as much time as humanly possible. And if I have a real estate investing friendly realtor that knows that some properties just aren't going to meet the requirement, and someone that's even willing to walk the property during inspections, that's a leg up. That's saving us as investors tons and tons of time. And that makes you as a realtor that much more valuable. My question is, when you were sending listings over for commercial properties, let's say, of course, we know, commercial is deemed, as far as unit counts, anything over 5 units or more, industrial, office, retail, those are all considered to be commercial properties. So do you need a different kind of license as a realtor than the standard realtor license that you can use to sell a home, or is it the exact same license? How does that work?
In Washington State, it was the exact same license. Now, there were certain endorsements you could go get. And once you had done a certain level of commercial volume, you could go pursue some of those endorsements so that, people knew that you had done it on the regular. But I had no problem going to some of these guys that had commercial warehouses, that had 20 units, that had whatever, and just saying, hey, I know my stuff and I've got a buyer that's willing to make an offer. Here's how we're going to go about this process. But what I did discover was that having cut my teeth really early on, like I'm so glad that I learned in single family all the things to look out for and to ask and how to calculate ROI and cap rate and NOI and everything else, because that's the world that a lot of commercial guys live in. And if you're not able to talk the talk, they're really going to be dismissive of you. And unfortunately, it also means they might dismiss the offer that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Hey, Michael, if I could, I'd love to talk about how multifaceted you are and how you have been able to make so much work while kind of juggling multiple balls and keeping everything in the air and being successful while you're doing those, or while you were doing those things. What did it look like for you to be able to have multiple different businesses going at the same time? And the reason I'm asking you this is because a lot of our listeners, they have W-2 income, or either they have another business and they're trying to jump into real estate on the side, or eventually go full time into real estate, but they've got a primary source of income in which they're bringing in their income for the most part. So I just try to provide them some value and give them some source of inspiration from people that have successfully done so, just like you have. So what were some things that was working for you to be able to juggle so many different things and still be successful at it? Like, being a realtor and all the other hats that you were wearing and being able to generate income. What was some things that was working? What were some things that weren't?
Sure. So the first thing that I learned that I had to do was I had to do time blocking. So I really did have to set hard no's on when I could do things and what things could look like. As far as how to make that work, what I did is that I would give people a Google Fi number for my real estate business if they wanted to get a hold of me or text me or get a hold of and do that. And I had that number set so that it knew, hey, take the transcript, send the voice transcript to Michael and do this. But the automated message that came up was hey, thank you very much for calling me. I'm currently either with another client or I'm underwriting a deal for somebody else at this time. And if you'll leave your message, I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. I never had anybody complain that I wasn't available, because I was explicit with people like, hey, here's the deal. I usually do, answer calls at these times, which happen to be my lunch break, or when I was taking a break in the afternoon, or when I was, driving for dollars or whatever I was doing. I would tell people these are the hours I'm usually available to live talk with you, but my other hours I am booked being in front of people or doing things that are helpful. And the real estate and clients appreciated that because they knew when I would be available and when I would get stuff. The other thing is that I did set that hard rule for myself that it was like, hey, if I'm going to get back to these people in 24 hours, I got to do it. I'm only as good as the word, because at that point, realtors were such a commodity. And with the NAR ruling coming down, they're even getting to be more so. And so I knew that I had to stand out from the rest of the crowd by following through with what I said and how I said it. The next thing I did was that I learned really quickly to systematize everything that I did. So the example of sitting down once a week, going through all of the new properties that had come out on MLS, I created a spreadsheet for myself. And all I had to do was type in the numbers, and I had the formulas spit out everything for me as quickly as it could, so that I could take everything and put it into a PDF document and spit things out. I didn't want to spend and waste time making things look pretty. I wanted to get to the next opportunity of what it was. And then as far as leveraging my license after hours, what I did is I did that thing that salespeople will tell you not to do, which is I talked first. At the time, the way that working with a client in real estate was thought was take them to the property, show them through, get the information they want, put them on a drip from whatever your CRM is of, great, they said they're looking for 4.2s and they're doing this in this area and they want this. Great, plug that in, send them have the emails go out, and then call them once a week to see if they want to go look at properties on Saturday. And after doing that for 6 months and not having closed a deal, I was like, this doesn't work for me. This is a waste of time. I'm not going any more 7 a.m. showings on Sundays because this market is dumb. I'm not going to do that. So instead, what I did was I started every conversation with this really dumb acronym I came up with. And I just said, hey, do you know how I earn my money as your realtor? And a lot of people would be like, yeah, I kind of do this sort of thing. And I said, okay, well, my job is to educate, advocate, refer, and negotiate for you. If I do all of those things, that's how I'm going to get paid. And let me tell you what that is. And then I would launch into like a 20-minute speech to them on educating means I'm going to do 4 transactions a month. You're going to do 4 transactions in your lifetime. Like, I know more, but that means I need to tell you more about what's going on. Advocate, like, I know what's normal and I know what's not normal. I need to tell you if something is normal or something is not normal in the process that we're going through. Refer. I'm not a roofer. I'm not an electrician. I'm going to give you 3 names of people. You call them. I want you to ask each of them this one question. If you don't like any of them, I'll find you 3 more. And then I'll find you 3 more until you find the person that you want to do the job. Because at the end of the day, the worst thing that could ever happen for me as a business owner is for you to say, I told you to do something. Instead, what I want you to say is, Michael gave me these options. He told me the pros and cons, and then I picked the outcome that I wanted. And then the last thing I would do is negotiate for them. Is you tell me what you can afford, what you think. I will come up with the strategies and suggest them to you on how we can go about making an offer that's not going to get laughed at, shot down, all that sort of stuff. And that was a way for me to time manage. Because again, I was getting leads off of Zillow, off of Realtor.com, after people calling the brokerage, that sort of stuff that were just coming in. And I needed to separate who was a legit person and really interested. And then I needed to make sure that they were people that, again, that first 6 months, can't tell you how many houses like, well, Michael, the room was, the last room was pink. And so we just don't think that that's a great house for us. And I had so many of those go through that you're just banging your head against the wall. Just like, I will pay the $400 for paint, guys. Like, if that's the reason we're not buying this house, I will do that. But I just had so many interactions like that. I wanted these people to make sure that if I told them something, that they were going to believe me and they would listen to the advice that I gave them. Those are the people I wanted as customers versus having, I mean, again, in that 6 months, I had 175 people in my pipeline that were actively getting drips and being sent information. And I was still only going on like 2 or 3 showings a Saturday to go through stuff. I was like, none of these are motivated people. None of them bought into me. I'm just a guy that opened a house for them. So how do I get them to be my realtor? So after I gave them that earn speech on this is what I do, at the time, Washington State did have a buyer's agency agreement prior to this NAR stuff. And so I said, great, I want to make a commitment to you. Here is how that commitment looks like. I'm going to do all this stuff, make this happen. But that means I need a commitment from you. I want you to stop looking with other investors or other realtors. I want you to sign this buyer's agency agreement. And you can pick how long you want that would be. If you want that to be 3 months or 6 months, it's up to you. But you get to pick how long I get to work and prove to you that I'm the guy that you should buy your home or your property with. And they, again, 80% of the time would go, yeah, that's great. In the instances where they were already with another agent, I made sure to ask that question. Now, here's how this works. I would like you to sign this contract. But before I do, are you currently working with another agent? Is there somebody else that's showing you houses or doing things? And most of the time they'd say, yeah, we had so-and-so take us through. And the way I would get around that is I'd say, great, I don't know them very well. I'm sure they're a very fine agent. All I would ask you is, have you signed an agreement like this with them? Have you signed an agency agreement that says that they're going to be your broker? And they would say, at the time, everybody would say no. I say, okay, well, here's the deal. I ethically am not going to tell you to come work with me if you already have somebody else that you're working with. What I want you guys to do, though, is I want you to think about our conversation today and think about, as a customer, who would you rather have looking out for you and the things that they're doing? Have I, in this 20-minute conversation, given you enough value to feel like I'm the right person? Or do you feel like that person opening doors for you is what you need and where you need to go? If they haven't signed an agreement, they would immediately go, no, we want to work with you. I'd say, okay, great, then let's sign it. If they had signed an agreement, I would say, I would do the two things. One, either see your agreement through, see if they can help you. I'm sure they're a great agent. Just give them the opportunity. But if you are being swayed, or if you're seeing the experience not be what you want, tell that agent. Go give them the feedback that you're looking for more. And then if they're not willing to give you more, or they're not willing to do the things I'm willing to do, then let them know you'd like to be released from your contract. And once you're released, then I'd be happy to work with you as an agent.
And so it sounds like you targeted investors for the most part. Is that where you pretty much got your footing as a realtor then?
Yeah, because that was where I could find consistent payouts. That was where I could figure out, like, okay, man, if I've got this property, now it's not I've got one buyer and I'm beating up other people to try and get to it. It's, man, this is a really junky property. Which are the 5 investors I know that are looking in this area and that we can do a deal together and make this happen on? Oh, okay, I know who to call and how to work with them. And I can show them where there's the hidden pitfalls, the things they're going to lose money on in this. And they're going to appreciate that for me and bring that to the table.
Yeah, I think that's super smart to go after investors, because a lot of, as a realtor, it's going to be one transaction and you'll never do business with that person ever again, whether that's going to be a listing or whether that's going to be a person that's looking to buy a home. Now, if they're listing their property, you probably could help them buy a home, within the transaction after the transaction has been completed. But, it's still 2 sales or 2 transactions at the most. But investors, we're going to be looking to buy, 5, 10 properties. And so you have a person that's going to be a repeat customer. And so that makes a lot of sense. And as far as how you were managing your time with multiple businesses, sounds like you were doing a lot of time blocking and just really trying to see the best way leverage your time, and also find out what was going to work for you instead of just spinning your wheels and doing the traditional path like other realtors. You got a little bit more focus and found out something that worked for you, and you went all into that channel. So yeah, that's really good information and extremely helpful. If we could go a little bit further into the show, before we went live, you were telling me about how you were underwriting deals for investors, and you were utilizing that skill as a realtor. Let's kind of chat about that. Share with the Moonlight audience a little bit of exactly what did that look like and how did you go about structuring that?
Absolutely. So again, I cut my teeth on just asking investors, like, what do you want to see? And then I would take properties off the MLS and then go and run them through the numbers to figure out cash on cash, NOI, figure out all the numbers that they wanted. Because again, some guys believe in cap rate. Some guys believe in cash flow. And for whatever investor, I would just ask them, well, tell me more about that, because I want to bring you something that's legitimate for you. I want to make sure that that fits with your need. So tell me more about why that works for you, what that looks like. And then when I bring you a property, I'll know exactly how to run those numbers. So what I would do, Eric, to, again, that efficiency, making systems, right? I would customize each of the calculators that I did, the spreadsheets that I did for the investor that I was working with. And so if I wanted to take a property to Eric, I had Eric's spreadsheet with his calculator on it because I'd already knew Eric's formulas. And then I would just plug in the numbers of what they would look like. And then it would spit it out and I would see, oh, okay, this doesn't work for Eric. Maybe this will work for Michael. All right, let me go plug it into Michael's calculator and see how that works. And does that make sense? Yes, this is a good deal for Michael because it hits these things. So then I would send that deal over to Michael and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. This is the property that I found. It seems to fit your numbers and that sort of stuff. Are you interested in having me represent you to make an offer on it? So that's what I was doing while I was licensed. And then as I moved over to Oklahoma, it's a state that doesn't share reciprocity with Washington State. So because I was no longer a resident of Washington, I couldn't be a licensed realtor in Washington State. And Oklahoma said, nope, you've got to go through all the classes and time and all the stuff again to do that. And I was going, man, I really don't want to go get my managing broker's license again. So I'll close it out, I'll lapse it, but I still had the skill set. So I attended the real estate investor meetups that were here. I put some information out in some of the Facebook groups and communities that I was in, says, hey, this is my skill set. I'm always looking for investors that are looking for things. And by the way, I just I went and did the thing where I went on Bigger Pockets, found some people who said they were investor friendly realtors here, got introductions to them, asked them to start sending me properties on the MLS, and then started running those deals through the calculators that I had to look at it. I would then take those calculations and put it out there and say, hey, I don't know if anybody's looking at Tulsa in the Midwest or here, but I'm seeing some opportunities here if anybody's ever looking to JV, partner, do other sort of stuff. And I was starting to get some people that were making like, really? That's that kind of deal? You can get that cap rate over there in the Midwest? And I was going, yeah. And it's not like, this isn't a unique deal I'm seeing. This is here. This is pretty consistent. And then I had people start to say, well, would you be interested in doing some underwriting for us? Like if we were doing marketing in that market, would you be willing to not necessarily be an acquisition manager for us, but would you like run the numbers on it because your boots on the ground? You can tell us if that makes sense for where it was because you know some of the local parameters. And the other benefit I didn't think about, Eric, was because I was no longer a licensed realtor, I didn't have to disclose that information to anybody if I went and looked at the property or did any of that sort of stuff. So now I could just, ask questions as Michael without disclosing, hey, I'm also a licensed realtor. And so I have access to this level of information and stuff. So what began to happen is that some of the buyers that I had been working with in Washington State, I was telling them about, hey, here's what I see over here is going on in Tulsa and what's happening. And they were getting curious. And so they started to say, well, would you do the underwriting on that? And again, I'm one of those people that it sounds like I know exactly how everything's going to go the first time I do it, but I don't. And so I would just make the mistakes and say, well, for the first couple of, tell you what, I'll do the underwriting for you. And if you're happy with it, if you think I do a good job, you tell me what that's worth. You write me a check for whatever it is. And so the first one I did, a guy wrote me a check for $75. And he said, yeah, I appreciate it. This is what it looks like, and go from there. And eventually I got that fee up to, hey, I'll take a look at a certain number of properties for you. And here's my flat fee for doing that for a certain number that I'll find in that region. And I got that up to being a $600 to do a portfolio look and saying, great, here's X number of properties. I'll do the due diligence. I'll talk to the realtor. I'll find out if they're there, or if they're off market, I'll talk to the seller. I'll get you all the details so that you can make a decision and figure out what that looks like. And that then led to a client that I'm working with now who has said, hey, I've got money. I've got a 1031. I know some other guys with 1031s, and we're looking for these types of asset classes. None of us want to run these things because we're not looking for new jobs. But would you be interested in leveraging your skill set to maybe manage some of these things and do that? And I said, sure, I'm happy to take a look at that for you guys. So the second round of underwriting we did, I found them a storage unit with multifamily on it as well, and acreage available behind it for them to expand the storage unit if that made sense for them. And the numbers worked out. Everything worked great. And they said, great, we're doing some creative finance on this. We're going to close on it. And we talked this week about, hey, we've got a 1031 deadline hitting. We're ready to start moving this machine forward and doing this sort of stuff. And so that's kind of how I was able to leverage that experience of doing that into yet another side hustle of, well, I have this unique knowledge and skill set. Let me give that to you and leverage that to you so that we can figure out how to do business long term.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you leveraged your abilities to be able to locate properties. You had the realtor background, so you knew how to go and discover properties and opportunities and reach back out to some of the colleagues that you had in Washington. And then you also began to underwrite deals. And so you just made yourself extremely valuable. And so were you more of a consultant during that period of time then? Because you weren't licensed during that. Am I correct?
Correct. So yeah, at that point, I'm just telling people, hey, I'm an investor too. You're an investor. I know this market. If you want somebody boots on the ground to tell you what's going on, feel free to leverage me in however you see fit. And so, yeah, consultant fits right into that way of talking about it. But again, that background of being a realtor, having done investment myself, like I knew what did and didn't work.
Yeah. That's just being super resourceful because you had skill sets from the past and you just took advantage of it. And that's what we have to do. As entrepreneurs, we got to keep our eyes open because there's opportunities everywhere. And if we are just aware and looking out for different things that's presenting themselves, you can stumble into all kind of different things that is just kind of like low hanging fruit, all because you have a a well-rounded skill set. So, Michael, great job on that. If I could share with the Moonlight audience exactly what is it that you do as of today, and is there anything that you just really want to share with our audience?
Oh, sure. So what I do today is that I work as a fractional chief operating officer. So I work for a variety of marketing agencies and traditional service-based businesses that don't need a full-time head of operations or COO. And they're just like, man, we're struggling with how to make the next phase of growth. Like we need to get over this hurdle into the next thing. So I currently work with a tax prep firm. I work with two different marketing agencies, one actually working with real estate investors on doing marketing to home sellers to help them get new leads coming in the door, which again, my background is hugely helpful for them to figure out product and how that works. And then I also am serving in a mastermind for some people that are trying to level up their agencies and figure out how to make that next stage of growth. So it's just leveraging what I know to do to grow a business for people and helping them get over that next hurdle. As far as what I want people to know about me is that I think it's probably just that I've got a unique skill set. I really like using that skill set. And I always love talking to people about what they've got going on in their businesses, because there is always opportunity to help other people and figure out what they're doing and get them to that next tier and next level of what they're doing. My favorite conversation I used to have with other realtors coming into specifically this market was doing things that I knew were opportunities. So going and saying, hey, would you send me that list of aging properties, anything that's been on market for 30 days or longer? And are you comfortable going and having a conversation with them to ask, like, what's the reason? Because at that time, this market was super hot, and anything sitting for longer than 2 weeks, it was like, man, that shouldn't be here. That doesn't make any sense for that property to be still sitting. So let's dig in. Let's find out the story, what's going on. I also developed a great relationship with a realtor here who dropped information for me about like tax incentives that were going on, opportunity zones, and other sorts of things. That led me to contacting City Hall to get copies of the minutes for the meetings where those were happening, the written requirements for buying those things, and then also getting the funding details. So you can see how much money they actually had out in those markets and what they were doing. And those were things that, again, just looking for conversations and opportunities of what people are experiencing.
Yeah. So you're definitely an inspiration for just getting educated and taking action, getting the experience and looking around for opportunities to be able to really use those different experiences as you go through your entrepreneurial journey. So, hey, Michael, great job on that. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the show. We've got a portion of the show that we like to call our Moonlight Coaching Round. And typically what we do is ask a few questions. If you could hold your response to between 1 to 2 minutes per question, that'd be great.
Can do.
First question I have for you is, what do you think every new real estate investor should know before investing in real estate?
This is a job where you're going to have to change habits. If you can change your habits, you can be successful in this job.
Yeah, you definitely got to be flexible and open to different opportunities. So great one on that one. Next question is, knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give a person attempting to get where you are within your real estate journey or within your entrepreneurial journey about balancing business and life?
Find the guys that talk about themselves the least and go have conversations with them. The quiet guys are usually the guys that know the most.
Yeah. They don't have to brag much. Their track record brags for them.
Exactly.
If a person had minimal amounts of time, no money or experience, but they wanted to start a business like yours, what steps would you recommend for them to take to start and scale a business similar to yours?
Find the person that is doing the thing you want to do, and steal this from Alex Hormozy, right? Go start offering to add massive value to what they do. Go offer to assist them with the things that are causing them problems. In return, they will give you the keys to the kingdom. They will give you the recipe book on how to build their business. And that's what I would have done, is I would have gone and found successful investors and tried to get into their business rather than trying to be a service to it, like charge them for the service. I would have just said, let me come spend the next 6 months like helping you. If that means driving you around, if that means like doing whatever it needs to help you with it, here's my hours, my availability. What can I do during that time to help you?
Yeah. Last question I have for you, Michael, is what is the greatest coaching advice you could give to a new person about knowing their numbers?
Every number you need to know already exists in a calculator out there. There's already somebody that's built the mousetrap. Just go grab those formulas and those mousetraps from everywhere else. Don't spend the time reinventing the wheel. And if you do that, if you just grab like, oh, okay, I found this NOI calculator. That's good. I'm going to plug that in here and I'm going to plug this in here. Then you're going to save so much more time than I did of trying to build all these custom things that were doing it. Just use off-the-shelf calculators that people have in order to do it, as long as you understand what that number means, because that's really the difference in this business is you can say NOI, but do you really understand what it would take to get that NOI? Like, oh, there's going to be a $40,000 increase in revenue. Yeah, but I had to spend $100,000 in order to get it. So does that really help me? That's the big difference I see in numbers for a lot of people is they look at those rosy outcomes, but they don't understand the cost of time or money to achieve those.
Yeah. That's 100% spot on. And I'm in the process of really trying to go deep on financial literacy as far as being able to understand underwriting and knowing my business math. And a lot of people, they don't really put the time in to master that. I'm not necessarily a master at it, but I just want to be extremely competent. That's not really something that comes easy to me by nature, but if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to know finance and know your way around a spreadsheet to be able to see if it's a great opportunity or if it's not. So, Michael, great suggestion on each one of those questions. Before I let you go,
can I give your audience one more thing?
Yeah.
This is something I never see anybody do, and it is the bare minimum what you should do. Call your local lender. If you're going to start building a portfolio or somebody else, like call your local banks and ask them what their LTV ratio is, and then ask them what the debt to income ratio has got to be on those commercial properties. Every one of them is slightly different on what it is. But if you build that into your calculator, because you know that this bank is a 1.25, but this bank is a 1.28, it makes all the difference in the world for you to be able to go and shop that and know what you're doing. And it again, it's all about that speed to getting in there. And it's public knowledge. They will tell you. But instead, I see a lot of investors just roll up and say, hey, I have this property. And then they go through the process and they're just like, hey, man, we're sorry. It's a 1.09 on what your debt ratio is on this. And so we can't do anything with it. And if you knew that going in, you'd know not to go to that bank or to that lender.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely got to do your homework, because if you are sourcing deals, you can spin your wheels. You could think you actually have a great opportunity, and it's not really an opportunity altogether. So you need to put some legwork into getting out front, building those relationships, making those calls. And so, Michael, great suggestion on that. Before I let you go, if you could share a great personal development book or either a great business book for the Moonlight audience.
Absolutely. The personal development book I love is called Psycho-Cybernetics. I learned it when I was doing IT sales, and it was so helpful. It's a very old book. It's a very tough read to get through because it's from the 1950s was the original version. So there's some really hard language in there. But the core key nugget that came from me was they talk about they did this study with basketball players. And they had half of the team after school shooting practice, doing free throws and 3-pointers and shooting. The other half of the team, they sat in a room and did for the same amount of hours envisioned themselves doing the shooting, doing what's going on. And what that book points out to you is that your brain cannot distinguish between the things that actually happen and the things you tell it are happening. And so what I learned from that is that I, by nature, am usually a very pessimistic person. And so that meant that I was setting myself up for failure because my brain couldn't distinguish if I had actually experienced failure or if I was just thinking about how this was going to fail and how it was going to fall apart. And there are a bunch of little, outlook things inside of that book that really helped me change from, oh, there's an abundance of opportunity to, oh, this is never going to work. I'm going to fail at this. This isn't going to work. So Psycho-Cybernetics is just my go-to book on anybody looking to change habits and really think about how they think internally different when they're going into a new venture or trying to make a change.
Okay. Yeah, that's one I haven't read. I actually haven't heard too many people suggest that. So I'll definitely have to look into that. Michael, thanks for coming onto the show. We definitely appreciate you providing all that great value about being an investor-friendly realtor and how to even get leads. And if something's not working, you can go in and kind of unpack it and see if there's other opportunities to be able to be more efficient with your time there. Hey, Michael, if there's anyone that wanted to reach out to you and connect, do you have a preferred method?
Absolutely. Contact me at michael@dissectingthedeal.com.
Okay. All right, Michael. Well, hey, once again, thanks for coming out to the show, providing all that great value and insight. We'd love to have you back anytime.
Thank you, Eric. This has been fantastic. I hope your audience got something out of it. And thank you again.